Hello, and welcome to r/PettyRevenge. Just before we get into the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell to be notified of all future uploads. Let's get into the first one. Cat popped my air mattress. I had one chance for the pettiest, cruelest revenge. A few years ago, when I had a guest over, I prepared a blow-up mattress for her to sleep on. Well, like an idiot, I forgot to close the bedroom door to keep the cat out, and of course, she had to try the new furniture that suddenly appeared. As she hopped on, I heard a distinct pop. Mattress ruined, but we still needed it. So we tried our best to make it work. It didn't work. After one very miserable night of sleep, the mattress had just a bit of air left in it. Just enough for the cat to hop right back on and give it another try. As she went to the far end, the side near me began to grow. I saw an opportunity for the pettiest of revenge. I dropped down the mattress as hard as I could, and my little shit of a cat launched into the air with an adorable but frightened. In a matter of 2 seconds, my petty revenge was trumped by my cat's petty revenge. She landed on my head. Neighbour won't clean dog poop off a sidewalk. Got a taste of his own medicine. To clarify, me is me, and SN is shitty neighbour. I've been living in this neighbourhood for a couple of years now. My neighbour just recently got a dog, a young black lab, and decided to start taking him on walks. You can probably tell what's coming next. For some context, I have a dog, a mutt to be exact. He's a very good dog and wouldn't hurt a fly. I frequently take him on walks and clean up after him every time. I walk outside to collect the mail one morning. I notice a decent sized piece of dog shit staring at me a couple feet away from my mailbox on the sidewalk. A little peeved, I fetch a plastic bag from my house and dispose of it. At this point, I wasn't sure who the culprit was, as there were a few neighbourhood dogs around. A couple of days later, I happened to see SN walking his dog in front of my house. No big deal. He can walk his dog if he wants to. A few hours later, I go outside to mow the lawn and notice another turd on the sidewalk. A little annoyed, and with pretty good confirmation on the party responsible, I finish what I'm doing and clean it up. The next week, I noticed SN walking his dog again. On the first lap around the neighbourhood, the dog lays another turd on the sidewalk, and they both keep moving on. I go outside and pretend to water my lawn when SN comes back round. I politely remind him that it would be nice if he could pick up after his dog. His response to this was along the lines of, "It's a public sidewalk. I can do what I want, man." Annoyed, I take this as a loss, return inside and clean up the poop later. A couple of weeks later, the same thing happens, and the same confrontation. This time, I spoke to him before the dog did his business, and he muttered the same kind of response. A few days after that, while I was walking my dog, I hatched a plan. My dog had done his business on our walk. I cleaned it up, placed it into a small plastic bag, and when I got home, emptied the contents of my bag into a small bin in my backyard. I continued this, using the shit from my dog, and the shit his dog left on my sidewalk. I did this for about a month, before I decided I had enough in the bin. I made sure to wake up bright and early in the morning, and I picked up the bin and shovel, walked across the street to SN's yard, and emptied the contents of the bin on his sidewalk, making sure to cause as much carnage as possible. Later in that day, I heard banging on my door. I opened my door, and not too surprisingly, SN was standing there, berating me about how ridiculous I had been, and that I needed to clean his sidewalk immediately. Much to his dismay, I replied with, "It's a public sidewalk. Handle it yourself." I said this with a shit-eating grin, no pun intended. He stormed off, and I closed the door. Later in that week, I saw him spraying down his sidewalk with a pressure washer, while out walking my dog. I came prepared, bitch. I think this counts as petty revenge. I was with a guy for over a year, my first love and my first boyfriend. He was alright, did some shitty things, e.g. taking my virginity as part of a bet, being generally lazy in the relationship, but it was the first guy to ever show interest in me, and we did get along really well despite some of his actions. It was about a year ago. He started to go a bit quiet and weird. No one told me anything, but I just knew he was going to break up with me. Mostly because there was heavy snow, which meant we couldn't travel to see each other. He asked to meet me in a cafe, which was unusual as we would always go straight to the other person's house and spend the weekend there. We meet, he's acting weird, but I'm expecting the breakup. It happens, he says he wants to break up, expecting me to cry and throw coffee at him. He told me this, but he clearly didn't know me that well. I say, "Yeah, that's cool. I brought all your stuff from my house. Here's your shit." I handed him a pre-made bag that I even spritzed with my usual perfume just to add the extra sting. He was surprised, I knew, but said I was cold-hearted later on. Edit. I totally forgot that. When he sat in the seats next to me, I kissed him on the cheek to thank him for buying the coffee before he broke up with me. Oh, damn. That is a sting. Well played. Well played. You kicked that piece of shit to the curb. No beer for you. I work at a place that delivers food along with beer and wine. Now the alcohol we have is overpriced for the quality. Wine bottles are $25 and 6 packs of beer are $15. Also, due to state rules, all alcohol sales must be before midnight. So I can hand someone a beer at $11.59 and it's okay. but if I get to their house at 12, I can't give them the alcohol. Due to this, we don't take orders for alcohol after 11:15. The other night, a lady called right at 11:15 asking to order just beer. Our order taker turned around to ask me if it was too late. I looked at the delivery board and it was almost empty. Right when I was about to tell him it was okay, I noticed the address. It was to an older woman who ordered food the previous day and didn't tip. She said she was too broke to tip. I told him to decline the order. If you're too broke to tip, you're too broke to order overpriced beer. Nuggets in the drive-thru. When I was a manager at McDonald's, I had a guy do this. We had a freak rush on chicken nuggets, like 5 20 pieces in a row. The customer pulls to the window. The cashier let him know it was going to be another 3 minutes for his nuggets, and did he want to wait or get something else. He demands to speak with the manager. He says that I have been waiting 5 minutes already and he isn't going to pay or move until his food is ready. I said that I needed him to pay and pull forward in order to clear the drive-thru. He refused and said they'll have to wait. I went to the back window, put a drawer in, and we started cashing and giving the food out there. 20 minutes later, fuming customer at the front window begins pounding on the window. I open it and he screams at me to know where his food was. I told him he wasn't getting any food. He was blocking my drive-thru and impeding my business, and he needed to leave or I would be calling the police. It looked like he would explode with anger, but he just screeched out of there. It was the most satisfying interaction with the entitled customer I have ever had working at McDonald's. Parking lot revenge. Several years ago, I lived in a gated apartment complex. I didn't know what the builders were thinking when they made the parking lot, but it was a disaster. Each apartment got one reserved, covered parking spot, and then there were a few, very few free spots. One early October morning, I got home super late from my job at a haunted house, like 4 AM or something. I couldn't find a parking spot anywhere. I drove around and around and around. I did 3 laps of the entire complex looking for a free spot. There were none. No free spots, but some asshole was taking up 2 spots. Some other poor soul had squeezed in between him and the wall. They weren't even in the parking spot, just the empty space between the wall and the other car. It was a small car, but a tight fit. I considered parking someplace else and walking home, but I didn't want my car to get towed or stolen, and I'd have to climb the wall. I was too tired to climb the wall, so I did what I had to. I rolled down both my windows so I could see the sides of my car more clearly, and I inched my way into the half parking spot that was not taken. It took a lot of back and forth, getting the angle right so I didn't scratch either car. I didn't care about my paint job. I didn't even have one. I was driving a crappy old car. It took me probably 45 minutes, but I was pretty pissed off and determined. This guy always did this, and I was sick of it. Finally, I got the car in park. It was sandwiched so tightly between the 2 cars that I couldn't even put my hands between the side mirror or their door. It was close enough that my arm wouldn't fit between the cars, let alone my body. I popped the trunk, folded down the seats, and Spider-Man crawled out of the back of my car. I took a moment to admire my handiwork. It was beautiful. I was closer to being in the parking spot than he was. I just looked like I was bad at parking. He looked like he parked illegally. So if one of us was going to get towed, it would be him. I felt bad for the guy on my left as I was blocking his passenger side, and he'd have to pull out of the spot before someone could get in. The asshole though, had his driver's side blocked. He'd either have to climb in through the trunk or climb over the passenger side. Served him right too. Don't take 2 spaces when parking is limited. Now perhaps the pettiest part of this is that I didn't have to work the next day, or the day after that, or the day after that. I worked nights from Thursday to Sunday, and I slept all day. I'd already done my grocery shopping the day before, and I didn't have anywhere to be for the whole 3 days. That car was stuck there all 3 days. I checked every day. It hadn't moved, all the other cars moved, but I had that effort trapped. Moral of the story, don't park like an ass. People without paint jobs have nothing to lose by blocking you in. Alright guys, that's going to be it for today's video. If you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!